There I am. Welcome back, Steve Malzberg Show. Joining us now, our final guest before the Christmas break, is the one and only Andy McCarthy, Senior Fellow at the National Review Institute, author most recently of the book Spring Fever, now out in paperback, The Illusion of Islamic Democracy. Hello, Andy.
Steve, how are you? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, too. And I got to tell you, before we get to what I originally wanted to talk about with you and still do, there was a piece posted, I guess, today at PJ Media that you wrote, and you participated in talking about the most underreported foreign stories of 2013. And I'm so glad that you weighed in with this, and that is the pogrom, as you put it, against Christians in Islamic countries. So very important.
Yeah, I really don't think, Steve, in terms of underreported stories, that there's even a close second. What's going on in the Middle East is just horrifying. It's shameful that we allow it to go on so tacitly. And, you know, I think the reason that it's become such a third rail, become so politically incorrect to talk about it, is what we've really seen happen to Jews in the Middle East, and in particular, what the policy of governments in the West, very much including our own government, has been in the Middle East, which is basically to legitimize the, not so much to endorse, but to legitimize the position of outfits like Hamas and Hezbollah, that the extermination of Israel is just like a legitimate political agenda. It's like, you know, somebody wants to talk about water rights, or, you know, let's talk about the extermination of our neighbors. It's you know, we've basically communicated to them that there's no comeuppance for taking basically savage positions and calling them politics. And then we're surprised when the next atrocity happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and this is something that has not gotten the media attention, as you wrote it under the guise of underreported, you know, the heading of underreported foreign news stories. So therefore, by definition, it hasn't gotten the attention it deserves, certainly. And this government just ignores it and doesn't talk about it, whether it's our Christian president or whether it's John Kerry, even when it was Hillary Clinton. There's just deafening silence.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny when Putin in Russia said the things that he said about gay people, and even pushed through legislation there institutionalizing discrimination against gay people, which I think we all ought to find reprehensible. Obama couldn't get to the microphone fast enough to condemn him and to condemn that kind of legislation. Here, we have not just institutionalized discrimination, we have actually savage violence taking place against a big part of the world community, the Christian community, even in the Middle East, not as large as it used to be, but still, you know, take a place like Egypt where there's still 7 or 8 million Coptic Christians. So we're talking about millions of people, and they're basically being driven out of their homelands over completely sectarian reasons driven by Islamic supremacism. There's no other explanation for it.
No, you make an excellent point with that whole Russian farce, which the policy is reprehensible. Yet, what two foreign policy initiatives will Clinton claim? Will Obama claim credit for? Of course, Iran. And now we find out after the handshake that talks with Cuba have been going on. In Cuba, they put him in jail. In Iran, they either jail him or kill gays. And he has no problem embracing and wanting to shake and negotiate and give whatever those people want in those negotiations to Cuba and Iran. But Russia, you know, they've got to be stopped. So it's for show. It's something he could talk about and make an issue out of, and the media goes along with it. But if he really wanted to make a difference, he would tell Iran, stop killing gays, and then we'll talk.
Yeah, you know, Steve, you raise a larger point, which I think informs a lot of the things that we talk about. And that is, we try to analyze these issues in terms of logic. We try to identify what principles apply in any one particular controversy or other, and try to follow through on those principles so that we have a consistent position from thing to thing to thing. And I think, unfortunately, the world that we're living in has become much more about us and them than it is about enlightened rationality. And as a result, if you're in a debate with the left, and the left decides that the people who are an issue are part of the us as far as the left is concerned, then they will figure out reasons or come up with arguments, not always very plausible ones, to support the position they take.
Right.
And if you're on the other side, they'll figure out reasons to condemn you, and they'll sound downright conservative if they need to in order to carry that off. But it really is about who's in and who's out, who's us and who's them. It really doesn't have a lot to do with logic.
No, very good point. We're talking to Andy McCarthy here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Your piece at National Review online, the president's one-sided panel arrives at predictable result, and that's about putting judges in charge of national security. And, of course, after the court decision that Larry Klayman brought, the president's self-appointed panel weighed in on NSA, and surprise, surprise, they think it goes way too far, and basically they're going to, they made recommendations, and watch for this president to take them up on them.
Yeah, well, we're seeing that on almost every front. The unreported story, let's talk about the American unreported story for a second. While that was all going on with the NSA, we found out that they're gradually shutting down Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, the installation there where we've been holding terrorists since after 9/11, by sending these guys back to their countries, including 2 who were sent back last week to Sudan. So we're now taking trained terrorists and sending them back to governments that practice terrorism and that are rabidly anti-American. Go figure. So I think it's not just that we're reining in the NSA program. We're really starting to, that is, the administration is really starting to cut off Bush counterterrorism, which, as long as the president needed to be reelected, he was all for Bush counterterrorism. Now we're starting to see it gradually get rolled up. And I think the NSA is going to be another casualty of that, largely because the intelligence community has really done a terrible job trying to defend it.
No, absolutely. And I got to say, I have mixed feelings about the NSA, and I've heard from both sides. And when someone like you, who I respect more than I could say, talks about it, I listen, and I'm swayed to that side. But I also have to say that, and you and I have talked about this before, an administration that is willing to gather all this information and then go around saying it's needed for national security, which I'm sure in part it is, but at the same time did what they did to the CIA interrogation unit when they took office and claimed that sticking a terrorist's head underwater, even if he may know where the next bomb is going off in this country to save American lives, that's not who we are. Well, then I just have trouble reconciling those two points of view and those two decrees and living with them.
Yeah, Steve, I think here's where the right makes a big problem here, or a big problem for itself. I mean, look, I can sit up here and talk about what the Fourth Amendment requires and what the Constitution requires all day long. But by relying on lawyers like me to try to be the face of the counterattack, if you will, part of the argument, I think we miss a big point, which is that, and I try to make this point all the time, we're a body politic, not a body legal. And it's not going to satisfy people, even if I could sit here and I think I could convince you that what the NSA is doing is perfectly consistent with the Fourth Amendment as it was originally intended and as it's been construed over the last even half a century. But people are not looking for the correct grade or the correct answer on the law school exam.
Right.
What they want to know is, what does this program do to materially advance our security? Why do we need it? And if we don't need it, if you can't give me a compelling reason, I don't really care whether it's legal or not. I want to know why the government needs my phone records. And that's the question I think that they haven't answered. And to roll lawyers out like me and say, look, here's what the Fourth Amendment says, here's what we're doing, here's why this is legitimate, is not satisfying to people. And I think that's really been the big problem. And that's a defense I can't make. You have to have access to the national security, the classified information.
Right.
That tells us how this program has advanced our security.
Well, the judge, Andy, said in the claimant case said that the government didn't show one single instance where it prevented. Now, interesting. Who did I have on after Clayman that said? Oh, I think it was General Hayden who said. But the judge said imminent, that it didn't prevent an imminent attack, and he said that's almost impossible to prevent an imminent attack. You know, just by definition alone, et cetera. So maybe we're playing semantics here. Maybe there was no imminent attack that was thwarted that the judge demanded to know or that he would have liked to have seen. So I'm not sure if that word was thrown in by the judge or not.
Yeah, but you've hit on what the big problem is. Judge Leon's only task was to figure out if it was legal. Now we go back to kind of the reverse of what I just said a second ago. If you're gonna look at this from a legal standpoint, then what matters is the legal answer, and this is legal and constitutional. Judge Leon can't decide whether politically and as a matter of good national security policy it's something we should be doing. That's something for the president and Congress to work out.
Right, that's not his job, right.
Yeah, what I think was wrong with what Judge Leon did was there's a Supreme Court case that controls the decision as far as a matter of law is concerned, and that is in the 1970s, the court found that this metadata information is not protected by the Fourth Amendment, period.
Right.
Now, Judge Leon may think that's a terrible decision. He may not like it, but in this man's army, he's got one stripe and the Supreme Court has three. So, it's not, he doesn't get to say, I don't think I'm going to follow the Supreme Court decision because it seems really old to me. Yeah. The Fourth Amendment is really old.
That's true.
He's got a district judge. He doesn't get to do that.
Well, I'll tell you, Andy, you're absolutely right. But, in a world where they're announcing today that Obama signed up for Obamacare, but he didn't. It was one of his lackeys who went down to an office and did it for him and whatever, and we're supposed to care that he signed up for Obamacare? He didn't go through what the other people went through. Anyway, listen.
He was busy getting fitted for the onesie and the hot cocoa.
Listen, have a wonderful Merry Christmas, the best to your family, to your mom, and to everybody, and we'll speak to you very soon, my friend. Thanks for everything you do for us.
Thanks so much, Steve. The same to you and yours. Happy, healthy New Year.
Take care. Andy McCarthy, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Okay, we have one final segment left in the hour in the show, and before Christmas, of course, the best of tomorrow and the best of on Wednesday, but Steve Malzberg Show coming back to you on Newsmax TV and radio.